and welcome to the second Netbook World Summit. My name is Sascha Pallenberg. I'm the editor-in-chief of netbooknews.com. That's this little website over here. I'm also running netbooknews.de, which is a German website, and I'm based in Taipei, so just to make sure that I'm taking advantage of the infrastructure over there, because as a small little startup that is publishing netbook news, it's very, very important for me to kind of escape into exclusivity. So therefore, Taipei is definitely the right ecosystem for me. So first of all, I would like to thank Mandriva for inviting me over here, and Vanessa and Melody. Thank you so much to make this happen, to have the second Netbook World Summit over here, after we already had a pretty nice meeting last year. And now in a new location, and I think you guys will agree with me on this, that is a pretty nice place over here. So yeah, the last 12 months in netbooks and this market. I remember last year during the Netbook World Summit, I think we were around like 20 or 30 people during the last summit. And we've been talking about maybe 10 devices that were available on the market. And out of a sudden, we can choose, or let's say the consumer can choose between 200 to 300 netbook devices that are available on the market. By the end of 2008, we roughly had around 14 million netbook units get sold on the markets. By the end of this year, we should have around 45 to 50 million netbooks sold. So as you can see, this market really, really exploded, and therefore also we can see a big change in the terms of how manufacturers are seeing netbooks, how they're trying to monetize this market. Because as you might know, it's kind of hard to sell netbooks in these days because the margin is very, very low. And what I can tell you about the Taiwanese industry regarding netbooks is that more and more Taiwanese manufacturers are completely changing. That means they're hiring more and more software developers, and they're trying to create infrastructures and ecosystems around netbooks. So it's not only the hardware itself anymore. We can see, like for example, a good example is a company like ASUS. They started a couple of platforms on the web, like ASUS Download, ASUS Gaming, and just different services around this. Intel just announced during the IDF in San Francisco the launch of an Intel App Store. The Intel Atom Developer Program just got announced over there. So we might see a central App Store for netbooks maybe getting launched in January. I'm not sure if Scott is going to agree with me on this, so sorry if I'm forcing you into something right now.
That's fine. We don't have a date yet for it, but
okay.
We're working on it.
So let's say early 2010. And in general, it's all about that this platform is going to get monetized in a different way. But just to look back a little bit, like I think it was December 2004, Walter, if you can help me out on this, when you announced your OpenPC project for the first time. Right?
2005.
2005, sorry about that. I'm not sure if a lot of people of you guys know that even the first EPC was based exactly on the same hardware platform as this OpenPC XO. So it was also using the AMD Geode at that time, but only for some 4 weeks when they figured out, okay, this might be a little bit too slow for our needs, and that Intel still had a couple of Celeron M CPUs on stock they needed to get rid of. So ASUS stepped in and made the first EPC, which became a huge success after they announced it during Computex 2007. No one was really expecting this, and I'm pretty sure not even Intel was expecting anything like this, because it meant to be for the emerging markets, and all of a sudden it became a mass phenomenon for the consumer market in the Western Hemisphere. And in just 12 months, the whole market changed radically. Like, ASUS was selling their first EPC. They were on their own on this market for the first 6 or 7 months. Then we had a Hewlett-Packard coming to the market too, based on a VIA CPU platform. It was a VIA C7M at that time. And then out of a sudden, just a couple of months, more and more manufacturers joined this market, starting with Acer. They were very, very aggressive and kind of saturated the market with the Aspire 1 because of this low price point. And now, pretty much every main manufacturer in the world needs to have a netbook in their portfolio. And actually, it's not only about netbooks. I would like you guys to take a look at also the other devices that are getting developed around netbooks. Because in my opinion, without netbooks, ultra-thins wouldn't even happen in these days. We wouldn't be able to buy a sub-notebook for 400 or 500 euros without netbooks. Because netbooks really had a huge impact and were really forcing the manufacturers to lower their price points, not only on mobile devices, but even desktop systems changed due to netbooks. I mean, you can buy a 250 euro netbooks right now. We can even see over here, some friends have netbooks with them, 7-inch version that you can buy for $80. It's amazing that you can buy an $80 computer right now, a mobile computer, where you can surf the internet. So the whole market shifted extremely in just 2 years. And right now we have a product with the netbooks that is pretty much the only device that is producing growth rates on the hardware market at the moment, let's say for the consumer. And therefore, it's of course very, very important that we have again a Netbook World Summit, that we can meet with our leaders from the industry over here, that we can do some networking, and that we can have some fundamental discussions about all this and to see where the market is going to. As I said, right now around 40 to 50 million units on the market next year. Now I'm pretty sure that we will have the same growth rates between, let's say, another 30 to 40 million netbook units that are getting sold. We're getting finally some competition, which is always good. Competition is driving us into innovation. And so it's not only about x86 anymore. We will have with Qualcomm, Freescale, ARM platforms, NVIDIA, Tegra. We will have these so-called smart books, however you want to define them. We will see how these manufacturers are going to define them, because they're still not available, even though they should have been on the market already for some 6 months. But they're finally getting launched, I'm pretty sure, during CES in January, even though I've been seeing already a couple of platforms. But in my opinion, our January will be a very, very crucial month for the netbook and for the smartphone for the smart book market, because Intel is going to announce their new Intel Atom generation, so the Pine Trail platform with a PineView CPU, which will again have an advantage in terms of power consumption. Then we will have Qualcomm and Freescale and NVIDIA stepping onto the market with this very, very low power consumption platforms. With 3G connectivity, so it will be always online, with GPS in there, accelerometers. So these devices are evolving, and it's not only about this small little $200 or $300 device anymore where you can only surf the internet, but due to the success of these devices are going to change too, and the competition is driving these manufacturers into new innovations. And I can definitely tell you that in January we will see a couple of netbooks that have pretty much nothing in common anymore with the first generation. I mean, when we remember the first EPC, unfortunately I don't even have one with me, but you know, let's take this little one over here as an example, because this will also be, I think, a 7-inch display. So that's a little bit like the first EPC generation. The EPC 701 series looked like this. A 7-inch display, 800 by 480 resolution, and right now we have netbooks on the market. Of course, this is a good example, MSI Wind, because MSI has been the first manufacturer to come out with a 10-inch version of a netbook. And of course, this changed it also immediately. Right now we can get netbooks with 10-inch and resolutions of 3066 by 768. So you can even run 720p on these devices. You have a great resolution, great web experience on this. And the manufacturers are stepping forward. They're developing different devices. I also definitely can tell you what I call these devices kind of netvertibles. I made this name up about a year ago. It's a kind of mix between a convertible and a netbook. So you have touchscreen capability, you can use it as a tablet, and in January during CES you can be sure that we will see about 5-6 new devices from main manufacturers taking care of this touchscreen capability, this tablet mode. So this will be very, very interesting, and 2010 is also going to be a very, very interesting year in terms of software. Even though the market is kind of ruled right now, we have a monopoly not only on the desktop or laptop market, but also on netbooks with Microsoft and Windows. But I'm sure that the netbook market is going into the direction, or let's say it's going back where it originally came from, because the first netbooks were all running Linux at that time, whether it was the old PC or whether it was the first generation of the EPC or the first generation of the Acer Aspire 1. All these netbooks came to the market with Linux. And right now we're finally getting some very, very customized Linux distribution, finally again. And we had the announcement from Intel with Moblin. We have Chrome OS coming to the market, even though it would take a while. So I'm expecting Chrome OS to become really public, and the first Chrome OS devices, let's say in the third quarter of 2010. We have solutions like Jolly Cloud, which is aiming for cloud computing. So it's all about having your netbook connected to the internet. And I can also tell you, due to this, by the end of next year, we won't even ask a question if a netbook has 3G connectivity or not, because every netbook will get to the market with a 3G module in there, so you can be always online. And I think that's a very, very interesting thing. It has so many possibilities and opportunities for the market, especially for developers, because we need applications, we need software. Right now we are mainly using desktop applications on netbooks, but this is going to change in 2010. And yeah, just to finish my little intro to the summit here, I would like to introduce Walter Bender, the CEO of Sugar Labs. And Walter was already doing the keynote last year. And he is the mastermind behind the Sugar interface, so the operating system that you might know from the old PCXO that we have over here. And that's a classmate PC, isn't it, Walter? Yeah, that's the third generation of the classmate PC, also a little netvertible, and it's running now the new Sugar interface that Walter is going to introduce you guys now for the first time. So yeah, I would like to put the microphone over to Walter and let him introduce the new Sugar interface. Thank you.
Okay. Great, well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I also want to thank the organizers and thank Mandriva and all the sponsors of the program. It's a little bit of a challenge to give a talk at the same conference 2 years in a row, but I'll see what I can do to make it a little different than last year. And actually, I want to start off with a story about, Sugar is about learning, and I'm going to start with a story that takes place in school. There's a teacher, and she's walking around the classroom, and it's art class. They actually, in this school, they haven't been taken over by standardized testing, and they still have the kids drawing, exploring, and doing open-ended problem solving. And there's a teacher, and she's walking around talking to each of the children about what they're drawing. And this one little girl, when the teacher says, well, what are you drawing? She says, well, I'm drawing a picture of God. And the teacher says, well, how can you draw a picture of God? No one knows what God looks like. And the little girl says, just wait, they will soon. And the reason why I tell this story is back in the 2005, 2006, when we at One Laptop Per Child and ACES and these other organizations were designing the Netbook, and I don't want to equate the Netbook with God by any means, but when we were designing the Netbook, no one knew what it was going to look like. And I think even today there's some speculation about what the Netbook really is going to look like down the road. So let me begin by showing you, this is actually one of the early sketches of what turned into this computer, the One Laptop Per Child XO computer. This was some of the designs done by a design firm, Continuum. Continuum was the first design company that we contracted to help us sort of think through the concept of the Netbook. And you can see there's actually a lot of neat stuff going on here that didn't end up making it into the typical Netbook form factor. And so I actually want to suggest that some of this might be part of what the netbook industry should be considering as we go forward. So I've got actually a three-part talk, and the first part is sort of a mostly optimistic view of what's going on in the industry. But I only say mostly. And for those of you who heard my talk last year, I talked a lot about opportunities. And I talked in particular about, well, first of all, I mentioned my colleague, Nicholas Negroponte, sort of became famous because of this concept of media convergence back in the early 1980s. He talked about the convergence of print and publishing, television, broadcast, and computing. And he said the action's going to be here, in the intersection of these industries. And I suggested that last year that there's a new convergence that's happening. And the new convergence is about not being digital, but about being open. And about open systems, about open communication, about open knowledge, about open media. And this is being driven by the free software movement and the culture. It's as much a cultural movement as a technology movement. And that there are lots of opportunities for the netbook market, lots of business opportunities, lots of opportunities for growth. Oops, sorry about that. I never did get the password for the network here. But, wow, this is really strange. Let me kill this. So there are a number of opportunities around the whole idea of open systems for the netbook industry. And I very specifically contrasted the opportunity for netbooks with that of the things that were happening in the phone industry. And I said, that there's a difference, and in fact, I talked about the culture war between the world of computing and the world of telephony. And boy, was I ever wrong. Was I ever wrong. And this is really the point I want to talk about in sort of part one of my talk, and it's a challenge to all of you, because we're in France, we're in the home of the Minitel, and the Minitel was an incredibly innovative idea. And it only suffered from one problem. The problem it suffered from is that Minitel was a telephone company project. France Telecom was the problem with Minitel, not Minitel itself. Not the technology, but the culture of phone companies. Because the culture of phone companies is about, we provide you services. You use the services that we give you. And back, I mean, while France had Minitel in the United States, we had a phone. Everyone had the same phone from Western Electric, which was the only company allowed to manufacture telephones in the United States. And they came in any color you wanted as long as it was black. And the innovation in phones in the United States at the time of Minitel in France was, well, suddenly they had phones that came in different colors. That was about it. So in some sense, I mean, you guys were so far ahead of the rest of the world, but the problem was you had the phone company. And what the phone company did was it said, it's not an open system, it's not open content, it's not open software, it's not open communication. It's, you get the services we give you. And they had some great services, but you know what? As smart as the people at France Telecom Research are, and I've got some very dear friends who work there, they're a very smart, very clever group. They invented this. But at the same time, outside of France Telecom, there are even more smart people. And so unless you're really leveraging that collective intelligence, you're never going to be as advanced as you expect. So there's this phone company culture, this phone culture around service. And I think that gets in the way of innovation. And the problem with Minitel is the phone company. But something happened just over the last year. Let me move the cursor out of the way. Because this is a year that we learned that there's an app for that. And what happened is that Apple, and soon Google, and soon a lot of other people, are suddenly making apps for mobile devices. And you know what? Apple's not the phone company, and Google's not the phone company. Suddenly the phone company is irrelevant. That suddenly we've broken through to the other side, and suddenly application development and innovation is not happening just at the phone company anymore, it's happening everywhere. And so I never liked phones, because I never liked phone companies. But now phones, the smartphone suddenly is a very, very interesting device. And so the challenge that we have in the netbook community is to really make a distinction. What is the difference between a phone, a smartphone, and a netbook? What's going to make this matter when I have this? And I think that's the real question we have to answer as an industry. We really have to understand what is the difference and why does the difference matter. Because otherwise, these guys are going to win. And it's not clear to me yet that this is the right answer, at least for the kinds of questions I'm asking and the kinds of problems I'm trying to solve. But as an industry, we have to answer this question. And some of the answers are kind of depressing. You know, I said it was an optimistic beginning mostly. Okay. I got this actually off the Wikipedia, the statistic, from, I don't remember the name of the source off the top of my head, but it's well referenced, as everything in the Wikipedia is. 60% of netbooks never leave home. What percentage of smartphones never leave home?
Sorry, where does it come?
If you Google, or if you go to the Wikipedia and look up netbook, that statistic is they've got actually a fair number of data about netbooks, and I'm sure actually the end of the day we've got a talk where we're going to get much more up-to-date information about netbooks and all these kinds of statistics. But to me, this is a really depressing statistic. And in part, if you go back to those images I showed you at the beginning, the design continuum images, what's missing? Well, one thing that's missing is a handle. Why isn't there a handle? Why doesn't every netbook come with a handle? Because this is not easy to carry around. I mean, it's light and it's much more compact than my monstrous laptop, but nonetheless, it's not really yet a mobile device. It's mobile in the sense you can move it from room to room in your house. But when we did this, one thing we did right with this one is this. It really is a mobile device. It's something you can carry around. The kids can carry it back to school. So it's a subtle thing. It's a little thing, and it's actually something that Apple did right years ago when they sort of were making their little plastic laptop computers. What were they called? The iBooks.
That's the first thing.
Yeah, the iBooks had a handle, and then Apple forgot about that. They lost that vision. And just about everybody doesn't do it. Intel actually does it with a classmate. And, but, to me, and again, with the theme that I'm passionate about, which is learning. Learning doesn't just happen at home. It doesn't just happen in the classroom. Learning is part of life. And the netbook has got to be part of life. If it's just sitting in the home, it's going to be, maybe the computer you leave in the kitchen for your recipes and your cookbook for checking your email, but that's that's not a very exciting place to be. This is where the action is right now. Apple, it's been fun to watch the ads because every week they up the ante. Every week when they say there's an app for that, I remember when it was, there are 5,000 apps, and then there are 10,000 apps, 20,000 apps, 35,000 apps. Now it's over 100,000 apps, all within this calendar year. And that kind of growth is what we're missing in the netbook world. It's not that we don't have a diversity of devices, big ones, small ones, big screens, little screens, some with handles, but it's in the software, it's in the world of applications that we really have to make some inroads. So, at some point, we've got to ask again this question: is this all we're doing, or are we doing something more? I think we're doing something more. I think what we're doing is much more significant than that. Again, if you go to that same Wikipedia article, you'll see a little gallery of netbook computers, and there's actually a great chart. There's a table that shows you all the variety of devices out there. But you know what? They all look the same. They all are the same. I actually added these to the gallery. I don't know whether they've been edited out again yet, but I just added these to the gallery. The Classmate wasn't in the gallery. The old PC wasn't in the gallery. This is the Little, which is sort of the newest entry in the marketplace. And it's actually a pretty interesting one. They're taking a sort of a cloud approach to the netbook. It's 100% cloud computing device. But you can see that they're trying to be at least a little bit innovative in terms of form factor. We got to break away from this. This isn't going to go anywhere. It's not going to go as far. It's not going to compete with a smartphone. We need more than that. Now, one obvious opportunity, one obvious distinguishing factor, and it's one that when I was at One Laptop Per Child we took very seriously, is the ebook opportunity. That there still is a difference between this and that in terms of physical form factor. And that, while maybe the next generation is going to be comfortable reading off a little screen, my generation, our generation, certainly prefers to have a display that has some size to it and some quality to it. So making, the specialized ebook reader is one thing, but every netbook can actually be a wonderful ebook reader. And it can be even more than a Kindle in the sense that it's a computer as well. And you can take advantage of everything that a computer gives you. So we've taken ebook very seriously in Sugar Labs. There are a number of different ebook options, and there are different library options for organizing and downloading books. And the nice thing, again, about having a computer is that on a computer you can do things like write margin notes or take voice notes, and you can share those notes with others. So more than just the reader itself. Suddenly it's a community device. So one of the things that I don't think we take enough advantage of in the netbook world is the fact that this thing's a computer. It's not just a portal into the internet, but it's something that can do computing. It's something where you can type and make and create. And I don't know about you, I actually, even today I can still ask this question. I often ask my friends who are engineers in the world of telephony even, and I say, how many of you have ever written a program for your cell phone, for your mobile?